welcome to another episode of Rock the Damn Boat with Christy Hughes. I'm your host, Christy Hughes. I am in quite the sparkly tiger outfit today. I'm feeling that big cat energy as always. And we are here today to talk about my journey to yoga studio ownership. I opened my studio in January of 2024, and it might not be that unusual to open a yoga studio. What might be more unusual is to open a yoga studio in a town of 1,800 people in an area where yoga might not be the first form of movement for some people, and deep in the heart of the Bible Belt where yoga might be a little foreign to a lot of people. Now, I have been practicing yoga for over 10 years. I'll tell you a little bit more about my journey from wanting to touch my toes to the type of yoga that I practice today. We'll talk a little bit about what it means to embrace small business ownership and all of the challenges that can come with that, especially in today's world, and also what it means to try to offer a community practice. Again, in a world where we've all gone online, and so many yoga studio owner friends have said that COVID completely changed the dynamic. I'm sure that's true for a lot of fitness studios. So we'll unpack that a little bit. But in the spirit of rocking the boat, I think that's where, choosing to support this type of business and to open this type of business in the market that I did, some might think are a little crazy, but I had a reason, and actually quite a few reasons. So let's jump right in, or out of the boat, as the case may be. I started practicing yoga, I think around 2013 or 2014. And at the time, I was working for PetSmart, and there was a gym on campus. And I would go down at lunch and exercise. And I was a runner for a while. I decided that I was going to run a half marathon. And then that led into running 5Ks and 10Ks each month. So as an avid runner, I had been lifting weights off and on since post high school. And I believe I talked about that in the dismantling diet culture episode where I talked about, wanting to hang out with the neighbor twins and look good and lift heavy weights. So over time, I realized that I needed to be more flexible, that I needed to stretch my body, especially if I was going to run. PetSmart's gym started offering a yoga class at lunch, and I decided to work that into my schedule. I had never done yoga before. Actually, I say that. I realized that I had a yoga video from circa 2006 that was, oh, not a beach body one, but something along a fitness series, and it was yoga for stress relief. I must not have used it very much. One, because I am stressed out all the time, and two, because I really didn't remember using it. So obviously it didn't do its job at that time. Probably still in the top of the closet here. I'll have to see if I can pull it out. I started going to classes with Deb, was her name. I'm not sure if she's still teaching yoga, but I do still keep in touch with her and let her know that she was a huge role model and influence on my yoga journey. Deb is a competitor in, I believe, triathlons and Ironman races and all sorts of things. So she is definitely the epitome of health and fitness. And at the time, I was just somebody who wanted to be able to touch my toes. I would go to her class and I would ask a lot of questions. After class, how do I do this? How do I find the right posture? You mentioned raising your hand overhead. Well, what if I can't quite get to that angle? Bless Deb's heart, she would try her best to help me imagine. I remember can't remember if it was side angle or triangle. And if you're not a yogi, this may not mean anything to you, but basically her direction was to pretend as if my body was between two panes of glass. And I'm reaching down one leg and I'm supposed to have everything between two panes of glass. Well, with absolutely immobile hips and some crazy impingement in my shoulders. I'm not even sure what shape my body was taking, but it absolutely did not look or feel like it was between two panes of glass. Meanwhile, on the other side of the room during that class, there was someone doing a full-on arm balance. And if I had to think back, it was probably Flying Crow or something to that effect. I just remember she was balancing up on her elbows and her legs were lifted off the ground. And I thought, oh my gosh, that is hardcore yoga. Like that is the epitome of perfection in yoga. And I need to be able to do arm balances. And that is my future yogic self. So I thought that that was the standard of yoga. A little bit of a spoiler alert. Yoga on the mat is called asana, Asana. It is one part of a much broader philosophy of yoga. And not everyone subscribes to the 8-limb path of yoga, but if you do, then asana is just one part of your yoga practice. The rest, including things like meditation and moving life force through breath and the way that you behave toward others and the way you think about yourself. So there's lots of philosophy in the yogic tradition. What we do today is modern yoga. So I shouldn't say that. What we think about when we think about yoga today, most people think of a yoga studio and going to work out or power yoga to burn calories. And none of that is wrong. All of those are forms of yoga asana. So that's where if you subscribe to traditional or holistic yoga, you might get a little, ruffled around yoga asana being called yoga. Yoga actually means union or yoke, and it's the idea that you connect with your higher self, which can sound really woo to people who only know modern yoga. But before I jump into all of that around philosophy, let's get back to me just trying to touch my damn toes. So I took classes for months. We ended up moving back to Texas, and I still wanted to practice yoga, but I was very intimidated about practicing yoga in a public class, in a studio. I decided once I heard that one of my coworkers taught yoga at a studio there in Fort Worth, I asked her if she would come over for private lessons. And she agreed to come teach. So, just like personal training, I had no idea that yoga teachers would come give private lessons at your home, but it was perfect for about the same cost as it would cost me to have a monthly yoga membership or to use a personal trainer. I had someone come in and practice yoga in the privacy of my own home. And that way, if I couldn't touch my toes or I couldn't get into that arm balance of perfection that my yogi friend in my class in Phoenix looked like, then it was okay because I was in the privacy of my own home. She could walk me through different tweaks and adjustments to make in my body to be able to practice these poses that I had only seen and didn't want to do in a class and embarrass myself. So, for anyone listening that has not yet come to my yoga class or not gone to any yoga class, because you are embarrassed by what your poses might look like or what your body might look like, know that I was in the same boat before I rocked it, which we'll get to. So I was in the same boat as you. I was embarrassed to go into public classes. I worked with Jen Holmes, who I also still, send a note to every now and then, just thanking her again for, like so many that have helped me in my yoga journey. She would come to the house. I would practice yoga with her. Now, I don't remember if I talked about this in my memoir or not, but I was definitely not sober at this point in my life. And I wanted to be. I was already sober curious. I had tried stopping drinking multiple times in Phoenix, but I wasn't yet sober. So I felt really guilty and a whole lot of shame anytime I would tell Jen, hey, I can't meet. I'm not feeling that great, which was always code for I am incredibly hungover. She was so patient with me and we'd reschedule and it wasn't a problem, or she'd come over and we'd do a really slow and restorative class. So that was fine. I was still paying her, so whatever type of practice we did was okay with her. And usually it would be a gentle class anyway. I started to learn more about my body and it became less about touching my toes and more about understanding my body, my genetics, my makeup. I started having a little trouble with my right hip, and anytime we would sit in cross-legged position, my right hip would be a little pinchy, a little sticky. Well, as it turned out, I have a bone spur in my right hip. Had it seen it on an x-ray, always going to have it. It potentially will get worse, but hopefully with the movement that I do, it will not. But it was just interesting to learn that later and know I have to forgive myself. I have to give myself grace because I have this anatomical issue that is going to create limited range of motion. So again, whether you don't want to practice in a studio because you're afraid you're going to embarrass yourself because you're not flexible, or you have an anatomical reason or a physical quote unquote limitation that means that you can't do certain poses. This is where I decided to rock the boat on what yoga asana needed to look like. I did not want to teach because my body did not look like the arm balance of perfection on the other side of the room. So I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself, but just know that that was me also rocking the boat of yoga. And who knows, if I were to talk to somebody who is a traditional yoga practitioner steeped in its cultural history and significance, I might be offending someone by saying, I think it's okay to practice and meet your body where it's at. And that might be something completely different than how it was originally viewed, because there were certainly cues in poses that you should be able to achieve, but the logic behind why we practiced yoga was completely different back then as well. It was not about burning calories. It was not about strengthening and toning our muscles. It was to honor spirituality and settle into meditation. Okay, so we've talked about PetSmart. We've talked about private lessons. I finally got to the point where I was brave enough to branch out and go to a yoga studio. I went to the one where Jen taught publicly, and I thought, well, it'd be easy enough to take Jen's class because I already know her and I can practice with her in a studio setting with other people, but with the teacher that I am familiar with. So it was great. I started going to Just Be Well Yoga, which is owned by Amanda, and I still keep in contact with her. Spoiler alert, she taught me aerial yoga recently. So starting to dip my toe into public classes, and at the same time, I was using a lot of YouTube videos at home. So if you need a complete beginner place to try yoga, Yoga with Adriene, far and away the best beginner series out there. She has been teaching yoga forever. She has been filming yoga forever, and she has more content than you know what to do with, than you could take in a lifetime of yoga. Somewhere along the way of my YouTube journey, I found the Journey Junkie. At the time, Allie, still my teacher today, was traveling the world and filming from all over the world. Her and her husband were on a sailboat, so she was filming from amazing, beautiful locations, different yoga retreats, different beaches, different settings. And I decided to join her membership. And this was in 2019. So it was very good that I had a yoga home before COVID. Mid 2019, I joined Allie's membership and am still in it today. So 6 years later. And I began to learn a lot more about yogic philosophy. So you have asana, which is the movement that you do on the mat, and you have yoga philosophy, which includes more topics than I can even get into here. I will include some resources in the show notes and plenty of places that you can explore. Began to learn about things like chakras. And in 2020, we started a chakra manifestation journey to bring a dream to life. January 2020, we start on this journey together in my online Body, Mind, Soul yoga studio. I'm going to classes in person. And then March rolls around and this thing called COVID-19 happens. The world shut down. My yoga studio shut down. Many yoga studios shut down and never recovered. The world went online for school, for fitness, for personal development, for all types of education. Everything that we were doing in person, we took online. It was a big blow for me personally because my dream that I was manifesting in that manifestation journey was to host retreats for women. I wanted to empower women just like I had been empowered since I quit drinking in May of 2018. And let me tell you, 90% of the self-help and thought leadership authors and speakers out there have been through a 12-step program. Maybe that's an exaggeration, but I'm just going to tell you now that a lot of the language that I hear from other thought leaders is mirroring what we learn in the rooms. And that's okay, because when you first start 12 step, you realize that the entire world could 12 step something. And that's why there's so many different sects of sect SECT, sects of 12 step. So, there's Alcoholics Anonymous, AA. That was my room of choice. There are all sorts of different groups. But the whole reason I bring that up is because at the time that I was doing 12 step, it really mirrored the 8 limbs of yoga for me. So I was learning from both, and I wanted to shout it from the rooftops that anyone who started out quiet and self-conscious could break out of that shell and become whatever they wanted to be. I am living proof. You are looking at it or listening to it right now. And that's been 6 years. So just imagine all the growth that I've done in 6 years. At the time, I wanted to teach people how to be more courageous and compassionate because those were the two traits that I felt that I had improved the most in. And now I'm focused more on confidence. I am a fan of alliteration. So courage, compassion, confidence, all the things, maybe because my name is Christy. Who knows? I wanted to teach people about that, and I wanted to use yoga as a component of it, but not a complete, not host a yoga retreat. But none of that mattered because it was March 2020 and the world shut down. I stuck with my dream. I continued to work through the manifestation journey with our group. I decided to record online courses. And when I look back at those today, oh my gosh, I'm so proud of how far I've come with my comfort in front of the camera and with speaking. It's night and day, but that's okay. Everybody has to start somewhere. And I started with these simple digital courses, little 30-minute modules, and you could work through the course. And it was super exciting at the time. And it gave me something to think about. It gave me something to focus on. It gave me something to do outside of all of those hours that I had spent drinking. And I hadn't started writing my book yet, so that wasn't part of my extracurricular activity. But I wanted to do something to give back and to contribute. So The Brave Kind was born, and that was my business at the time. A little bit of merch, a little bit of coaching, a little bit of retreat prep. All the while, I was practicing yoga, and I knew that yoga needed to be a component of the retreat, but again, didn't want it to be the focus. I'll skip all of the details, but between 2020 and 2022, I continued to practice yoga in person, online. I started practicing some aerial yoga with Amanda, which is why I was so excited when she did a training over this past summer, and I took it from her and added yoga to my studio. But give it, a couple of years there, I was practicing with Body, Mind, Soul Studio. So even when I moved out to rural Texas in Hamilton, I could still practice videos. I was joining live events on the Body, Mind, Soul Studio as often as I could. I went to a retreat with that group in 2022. I was supposed to go in 2020 to the retreat that Ali hosted in Bali, but obviously that didn't happen because, again, COVID-19, 2020, the year we'd all rather forget. So in 2022, I decided I was putting a stamp, I was stamping a date on it, and I was going to host my first retreat. So I did. In September of 2022, I hosted my first retreat on our farm. And then a few weeks later, I went on a yoga retreat with the Body, Mind, Soul Studio and Allie in Pennsylvania, where I caught COVID for the first time. Yeah. COVID was bound and determined to be forever linked to my yoga retreat experience. Bali canceled. Pennsylvania got it. Maine a few weeks ago had it, tested negative just in time to go on the retreat. Yeah, me and COVID. Maybe I will not sign up for any more retreats in September. Our new COVID season. All right, so we are at 2022 retreats. And then on that retreat in Pennsylvania, Allie starts talking about yoga teacher training. And some people were talking about taking it, and it was going to be starting the following spring. And I thought, I'm fine. Who am I to teach yoga? I am not flexible enough. I can't demonstrate some of the poses that people like to see. I can't arm balance. I certainly can't do a headstand or a handstand unless I'm in the aerial sling, which is cool that I can do a handstand that way. But I had so little confidence in my ability to teach yoga asana. Few months go by. Allie puts out the signups for her 200-hour yoga teacher training. Nope, nope, not gonna do it, not gonna do it. It's a lot of money. I'm never gonna teach. I'm not gonna do it. Started seeing all of my friends from the group sign up, some of my retreat buddies, more of my retreat buddies, few of the ladies that I really got to know over the retreat, and I couldn't take it anymore. And when she sent the email out saying that there were just a few spots left, I was like, forget it. I have FOMO so bad that I am signing up. So I did. Best decision I ever made. Started in May of 2023 with Allie, and I think she had 40 in that cohort. We were divided into little pods and we had Zoom calls every other week. So I had a few ladies in my pod, Jess, Hadley, and Sarah, who I keep in touch with and see every year at my studio anniversary. They have been huge supporters of mine since the beginning. 6 months, give or take, of yoga teacher training. So a 200-hour, when it's over 6 months, is going to be about 10 hours of work per week. And I thought, okay, no problem. I could handle that. Allie warned us that there would be a point in yoga teacher training that you'd be like, can't do it, can't do it, not interested. I'm way behind, can't get caught up. Okay, the perfectionist in me said, I don't know what she's talking about. I can handle my 10 hours a week. I can do it. I'm going to have complete enthusiasm and motivation this entire time. No sweat. Well, guess what? My husband bucked off of our rescue horse in June of 2023. I had to attend a live workshop for our yoga teacher training from the hospital. It was a really emotional and trying time. I was caring for my husband. I was worried about him. I was stressed, but all of my yoga teacher training cohorts were supporting me. My friend Jen sent me Reiki in the hospital. It was a terrible time and a most empowering time because I realized what it meant to get support and to ask for help when you need it. But I absolutely, after that, hit that wall of I am not interested in keeping up, and I'm going to have to cram a little bit to keep up. For whatever reason, in July, I was journaling and I jotted down at the top of my journal page, does Hico need a yoga studio? And throughout that year, I had been attending yoga at the library in Hamilton with all of the retired ladies. Some of them thought I was in college. I was like, oh, you are so kind and sweet. I was 40, whatever at the time. I was like, oh, you guys are great. So I had so much fun practicing with those ladies. And thankfully, I worked from home and my job was flexible enough that I could go take 9 a.m. yoga and then come home. I realized how much I missed community and practicing in community. Hico was a little town about 30 minutes from where we lived, but about 20 minutes from Hamilton. And my husband and I would go eat there every now and then, and I saw this perfect space in Hico. It had bamboo floors, it had a stone wall, it was perfect open floor plan for a yoga studio. So after I jotted that down, those things just began to unfold. I found that space. I inquired about it. Probably a month went by. I didn't hear anything. I finally called. I got the information on it, kept considering what that would look like, did all the research on what kind of yoga there was in the market, which wasn't much. Who would my target audience be? Could I grab people from Stephenville? Would they drive over to Hico? And I felt in general like the energy in Hico was a little bit different, a little bit younger demographic, families. I signed the lease, started working on the studio in November, and opened in January of 2024. I graduated YTT right around the same time, and thanks to my cohort, my pod, I had the confidence to start teaching because they kept telling me, you are great at this, your pace is amazing, your voice is relaxing, love it, love you, you are ready for this. And Allie, our teacher, told me the same thing. So I dove in with both feet. Rural Texas yoga is interesting. So if you were to go to other parts of the country where there's a yoga studio on every block, then you wouldn't understand that yoga can be misperceived. Is that the right way to say it? Misconception, perceived as, I'll have to think on that one. Yoga can be perceived as a religion that does not fit in with the traditional mold around here. Yes, yoga is rooted in Eastern religion, and it was practiced by Hindus, Buddhists, Sikhs, Jains, many Eastern religions yoga is woven into those practices and those religions and those beliefs. It is also pulled from texts that were written with Hindu religion and philosophy, all intermingled. Yes, I have studied briefly some of those texts and philosophies and had a really strong foundation in what the origins of yoga are. It is important to me to continue to educate people on those. And so if that part of my yoga is getting misconstrued, oh, that's a good word. Okay, misconstrued as me pushing a certain religion, then that's unfortunate because that is not the case. I have been asked by a student if they could be Christian and do yoga. And the answer is yes, because yoga is about fostering spirituality, connecting with your higher self, which is the best version of you. And you can find that through any religion. In Christianity, if you follow the 10 Commandments, if you strive to live a Christ-centered life, then you are living in alignment with yoga. If you are Jewish and you follow Jewish traditions and you believe that Jesus was a really great man, but not necessarily the Son of God, but you follow the ideas of kindness and good deeds, you're in alignment with yoga philosophy. If you are spiritual but not religious, you are in alignment with yoga philosophy as long as you are acknowledging that there is this big presence in our lives that can bring us inner peace, inner fulfillment, that all of these things that happen throughout our day, all of these small things that we sweat are insignificant by comparison to what we can build from inside when we let go of all of those petty things. That to me is my biggest reward out of yoga is that I stop sweating the small stuff. And if you ever go back and read the book, Don't Sweat the Small Stuff by Richard Carlson, let me just tell you, he died of an aneurysm at age 45. So thank goodness he didn't sweat the small stuff and he went out and lived his fullest life, published books to help empower other people to not sweat the small stuff because he had very limited time on this planet, which is why I have 2 months left at my corporate job and I am going to do this and coaching and helping others full time because we are limited in our time on this planet and we could stand to let go of a lot of the petty things that happen throughout the day. I went way off on a tangent there, but that is how yoga is represented in my life, that I don't sweat the small stuff because the mindfulness that yoga can bring to you is absolutely amazing. Now, just like anything else, just like the Bible has been translated into thousands of different versions, yoga has been translated into hundreds of different lineages. So you have power yoga, you have, oh gosh, I'm not even gonna be able to think of all the different ways that yoga is represented today, but if it's on the mat, that is yoga asana. And there are a lot of different ways to practice yoga asana. There are a lot of different ways to use yoga to enhance your physical mobility, your mind muscle connection. But I am here to tell you that you do not have to be arm balance perfection to practice yoga asana. You don't even have to get on the mat to practice yoga. I am totally out of time because I have an appointment with my coach. I'm going to end it here, rocking the boat by bringing yoga to rural Texas, rocking the boat by saying that any body type can do yoga. And I hope that that inspires you. And if you have any questions about yoga and how to make yoga approachable to your body, I am here for you. So please reach out. I am happy to support your yoga journey, whatever that looks like, wherever you are in the world. Thanks for listening. I'm Christy Hughes. I will see you next time.